Welcome to the show, Nicole.
Thank you.
So, growing up, were you the oldest, youngest, middle, only?
I was the oldest of three.
Oldest of three. That's what I
Yep.
am too. Would
Yeah.
you brother and sister, or just a brother, just sisters?
Two sisters.
So you're one of three sisters.
Yes.
How far age are you apart?
I am the oldest. The next one is 16 months younger than me, and the last one's 6 years younger than us.
Okay, so you and your sister were pretty close at an age.
Oh yeah.
Were you close in general, like as sisters?
Yeah, I mean, growing up, it was like a built-in friend, so we were always together. I think because we were so close in age, we also bickered and fought a lot.
Yeah, that was like me and my brother. We fought a
Yeah.
lot. We went back and forth. We got closer as we got older, but as kids, we went back and forth a lot and argued a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And we would fight a lot too. We were 3 years in age, but he was like the same size as me. So
Right.
now, growing up, your parents stay together, or they divorced?
My parents are currently divorced, but they didn't get divorced until I was about 20.
Oh, okay. So they were together then growing up.
Yeah. Yep.
And how was that in the household?
They fought a lot. My dad developed a drinking habit. I think I was probably about 12 when I realized, I think he drinks a lot, but.
Now, did you steer clear of drinking?
I drink socially. I haven't had any issues with it. Like my dad does. I wouldn't say I'm an alcoholic or an addict like he is, but.
Mm-hmm. So, anything happened growing up that you wanted to talk about?
Not necessarily growing up, but in my adult life, I've been through some pretty severe domestic violence issues and things like that. So
when did you start dating in general?
I had my first boyfriend. I think I was like 15. I was married by, I think it was like 19 or 20, divorced by 21.
Married.
What?
That's pretty young to get married.
Yeah, it was.
How come you got married so young?
I got pregnant with my oldest.
How many kids do you have? 2
currently.
Okay. So you got pregnant at 19, so you decided to get married?
Yep.
Yep. Was he your age?
Yeah, yep. He's only a year older than me, so.
Oh, okay. But that relationship wasn't a good one?
I think we were both very young. We were both too young to get married, too young to have a kid. And once, I got pregnant, once my son was here, I realized, this probably wasn't a good way to raise my son. We were better off separated, and we still get along now, but.
But you've had some other tumultuous relationships since?
Yes. In 2019, I was dating someone, and I don't have any kids with him, but I was dating someone who had an alcohol problem, and he almost killed me, so.
So you started dating in 2009. How old are you now?
I'm 33, so I think I was 27 when I met him. I think 28 when the incident happened.
Okay, so what went on for the first, because you were divorced by 21.
Yep.
You getting any other relationships between 21 and 27?
Yes, I had met my daughter's dad pretty quickly after, and I got pregnant again. I think I was 22 when I got pregnant with my daughter, 23 when she was born, and we were together for a long time, probably about 5 years. I think I was about 26 when we split. So, and he's quite a bit older than me. He's 12 years older than me, I believe.
But you guys never got married?
Nope. No, never got married. That was, go ahead.
No, was it because you had a rough marriage the first time, like it didn't last?
No, I definitely wanted to. He didn't want to get married, and looking back and older through the eyes of a 30-year-old, I'm the age he was when we met now. I think that was It was a very emotionally draining relationship. I think there was a lot of control issues and power dynamic, and he would always say like, "Oh, you only marry somebody you can't live without." Like, we have kids and we've been together for this long, but okay. So
How was that? Like, did you feel rejected?
yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Big time. When we split up, I stayed home. I stayed home with the kids. I wasn't working at the time throughout that whole relationship. When we split up, he basically let me know I'm not renewing my lease, or we're not renewing our lease. I'm moving back in with my mom. You don't have a job or anywhere to go, so I'm getting the daughter, my baby. And I was homeless for a little while, jobless, really had to work my way out of that because I still had my son that I had to take care of.
Did you have your son full time, or did
Yep. Yeah, I have him full time. He sees his dad on the weekends, but I'm the main parent for him. So
yeah? Now, were you getting any income at least from like your ex-husband?
not much, not much to support ourselves.
Did your son go with your ex when you were having a rough living situation? Like, where were you living?
I was living in. I was going from hotel to hotel. Um, I tried to keep my son with my ex as much as I could because the county gives hotel vouchers, but it was not a conducive place. It was not a safe place. It was not a clean place, and I just didn't want my son around all that.
Now, I didn't know they give county where are you from?
I live in Colorado right now, so the Denver County gave 2-week hotel vouchers for single parents.
Oh, that's a relief. I didn't know they
Yeah.
did that.
Yeah, it was definitely, I was very thankful. It was still very stressful because it was only a 2-week voucher. Um, so they gave me the hotel voucher and a packet like this thick of emergency shelters. And it was calling, getting in the lottery. Sorry, we don't have any beds constantly. Hey, can I get in? Can I get in? And nothing's ever open. So I was like, how am I supposed to also look for work? And when calling shelters is a full-time job. It was definitely stressful. I have a really good friend who, while I was calling shelters, she was from her desk. She lives in Massachusetts. From her desk, she was sending out my resume to everything in the Denver area just to help me kind of manage the load. So I was very thankful for that support.
Did you grow up in Massachusetts?
I did. Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
I used to live in South Shore.
Okay. Yeah, I grew up in Lawrence.
Okay, I lived in Plymouth, Carver, Middleborough, and New Bedford.
Right on.
So all
Yeah.
over the South Shore.
Yeah.
How'd you make yourself out to Colorado?
So my son's dad, my ex-husband, is actually from Lowell, and I don't even know how we got out here. He asked me one day, "Do you want to move to Colorado with me?" And I was like, "Sure." And we moved out here. I got pregnant pretty quick. Got married, got divorced, and we're both still here.
Okay, so it was just kind of on a whim that you guys moved out there together
Yep.
at 19, 20 years old.
Yep, with $400. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big jump. It's not like you live close to your parents or close to your in-laws because they're all from Massachusetts.
Right, right. It was, I kept telling myself the plane goes both ways. The plane goes both ways. And gosh, 14 years later, here I am.
Okay. So no wonder why you had to rely on hotel vouchers
Yes,
because it's not like you could just go back to your parents' house.
right, right.
And then you get into this other relationship and how quickly do you move into your second relationship?
From my divorce, I would say it was pretty quick. Um, I think when my ex-husband and I separated and split up, I would say probably, God, I don't even know. I know my daughter was born prior to our divorce being finalized, but we were not together. It was not, it wasn't anything. where I had like cheated on him and got pregnant and we got divorced. Divorce takes a long time.
No, I know that.
Yeah.
But how soon, like when you guys got divorced, could you stay in the house that you were living in?
Yes, I did stay in the house that I was living in. I had a friend move in with me to help cover the rent. So I got a roommate. And it was pretty quickly after that. I would say a couple of months. My daughter's dad moved in with us. And then I found out I was pregnant again and kind of just took off from there.
And that's okay. So he moved in with where you were living.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And go ahead.
Yep, he moved in where we were living. The house was owned by my ex-husband's aunt. So once they found out I was pregnant, they essentially evicted us. And then the two of us, well, the three of us, my son, my daughter's dad, and I got our own place together.
Oh, okay. So you guys were renting from your ex's aunt and uncle.
Yes.
And then they terminated the lease when they figured out that you weren't together anymore.
Pretty much, yeah. Yep.
How easy was it to find something new? Was your new boyfriend working?
Yes, yep, he was working. It was pretty easy. He actually had a cousin who was looking to get out of his place, so we moved in there for the duration of the lease until the lease ended about the time my daughter was born. So we moved in there. We stayed with his parents like for the delivery and a couple of weeks after delivery until we could secure, our own lease, and that's what we did.
Oh, okay, I see. And you guys were together for 5 years, you said.
Yeah, I think about that. About 5 years.
How was that relationship?
If you would have asked me at the time, I would have said it was good, and it was. I enjoyed it. I was happy. Looking back on it, I think there was a lot of, emotional abuse is such a hard word to use, but I guess abuse is what you could call it. I was never good enough. He called me driving our daughter home from the hospital when she was born. He didn't like the way I had packed the diaper bag, so he was screaming at me on the way home, calling me retarded because of the way I packed a diaper bag, things like that. So it's a lot of hindsight that I didn't realize because I was so young. I was like, wow, that wasn't okay.
Your Massachusetts accent finally came out.
Yeah, there's still a few words in there.
Yeah, I was waiting to hear the accent.
Yep.
All right, so it was more of an emotional abuse than a physical abuse.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it wasn't bad enough that in the moment you felt threatened by it.
No, I never felt physically threatened by my daughter's dad. It was just very emotional. It was very draining. It was hard.
Now I'm just curious, what's it like living in Colorado compared to Massachusetts? Each state gets a bunch of snow.
Yes. The weather is so much better out here than in Massachusetts. I don't go home for Christmas. It's too cold. It's too wet. It's too rainy. The snow out here, once it snows, it's gone the next day. There's no slush. There's no dirty cold from October till April type of weather.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yep.
that was I know exactly what you're talking about, that disgusting slush.
Yeah. Yeah.
I lived in Plymouth and that shit was no good
Yeah.
And they would use the mall parking lots to put all the excess snow.
Oh yeah. It's nothing like that. It's usually gone the next day.
I wonder why that is. I wonder if it's just the elevation maybe.
I think it's the elevation. It's a lot sunnier out here. There's not a lot of overcast days, even when it's snowing and raining. It's pretty quick cloud coverage, and then it's gone.
Now, do you have family that visits you out in Colorado?
My parents have come. They haven't come for a long time, but they have come when the kids were little. I'm actually going back next summer with my kids, so.
Like for this?
No, just for a week.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
When was the last time you were out there?
2019.
Oh, so it's even been 5 years since you've been out there.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep.
And are your sisters still in Massachusetts?
Yes. Yep. Yep. I think my sister, I think one of them's in southern New Hampshire now. I think she's in Salem, but
Did they
same.
ever see you out there?
They haven't been out in a long time.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
So you've been living out there what, like 10, 11 years?
Yeah, 14. It'll be 14 in February. I got out here in 2011,
Okay.
February 2011.
All right. So that relationship ends.
Hmm.
How soon, and you're kind of homeless.
Yeah. Hmm.
When do you meet the next guy?
Um, 2019. So a couple of years after. Let me see. Oh, yeah, I think maybe 2 years after.
So, um, how long does it take for you to find housing that's permanent?
Uh, it took quite a while. It took roughly about 2 years, honestly. I was going from hotel to hotel. I found, a couple on like Facebook who was willing to rent me a room. That in and of itself is also super toxic. I got out of there pretty quick. I found an apartment that I could afford to rent. I ended up getting evicted out of that. Um, I really couldn't afford to be on my own at that point. And then I had met, my ex, the one who I had the DV issues with. I moved in with him. All of the DV issues happened, and then I was finally able to be able to support myself in an apartment on my own. So,
How did you meet him?
I met him through friends. He was coworkers with a few of my friends. So just kind of got in touch that way, hung out a few times, and stuff like that.
How quickly did you move in there with being like so, like your living situation wasn't ever really permanent? How quickly did you move in with him?
It was pretty quick. It was a couple of months. I got evicted when we had just started dating when I had gotten evicted. So I was going back to a hotel. I could afford a hotel at this point for a little bit. And he had, reached out to me. He was like, "You can come stay with me. Like, I don't want you living in a hotel. It's not safe, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, "Yeah, it's probably a good idea." So I did that. Probably only about 2 months of dating, though. It's way too soon.
Yeah. And how soon does he like? I take it early on. He was like nice and gentle and
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And there were, like, looking back on it, there were definitely a few red flags where he would try to be controlling, but I wouldn't put up with it. He would be upset that I was on the phone with my girlfriends or I was going to a friend's house, and I'd be like, "Be upset then. I'm not going to change for you." And I thought that's kind of where we would draw the line. You know what I mean? Like, nice try, but no. And I think he was just like harboring all of it until eventually he blew up.
now, was it a one-time thing?
Yeah, it was the only time. I didn't go back after that. I'm sure had I given him more chances, it would have continued to happen.
So what did happen?
He was at a work meeting one night, and I was on the porch with my neighbor, and we were smoking, and I had told him about it. Sorry, I get shaky even thinking about it. And he was off the rails. You're smoking with him and blah 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 blah. I'm like, "Dude, we're sitting on the porch in front of the house. Like, he came over. I have a bud, he has a bowl. We're just smoking. It's no big deal. Like, I'm not doing anything." And he was drinking at the work event, and he was just spiraling and spiraling and spiraling. Sorry. So he'd come home pissed, super mad. And I don't really remember how the physical altercation started. Um, but I remember we were like wrestling in the living room. Um, my son was sleeping in the next room, so I'm like trying to be quiet. We were wrestling. He had me up against the wall. I had pushed him off the wall. He started choking me. I started trying to get away. He grabbed me by my hair and was like dragging me around the house. All of a sudden he shot up and he tells me, I'm going to kill your son. So I jumped up and I'm following him into my son's room, and I'm like wrestling him out of the room quietly. And it seems almost cartoonish how I remember it, because I remember trying to be so quiet so my son wouldn't wake up and see what was going on, and just trying to get him out of my son's room. And this was going on and on for like 2 hours, strangling me. He tried to stab me with a kitchen knife, pulling me around the house by my hair. He kept trying to get into my son's room. I kept pushing him out. Finally, I was able to get away from him and run to our next door neighbor's house. And I was like banging on the door. I was like, I need help. I need help. I need help. But I could hear him in my house where my son still was, just breaking shit, just being angry, just being really, really angry. So my neighbors couldn't understand what I was saying. So I ran back inside the house because I was so scared that he was going to lock me out of the house. And now my son's inside. So I ran back in the house, still fighting, still wrestling. He's on and off, choking me till I see green, trying to stab me. And then I remember, it's bits and pieces, but I remember being on the floor in the kitchen, and he had his hands around my neck and he had a knife, and I'm going green. And in my head, I'm like, this is it. Like, I'm dying. I'm dying. And then I was like, fuck, dude, my son's gonna wake up and see me dead on the floor. And after that, I don't know how, but I got him off of me. He ran out of the house, so I locked the door. I'm like running around trying to pack a bag, get my phone. I couldn't find my phone at this point. I had no idea where it went. Find a charger, just so I could get us out. As I'm running around, I hear the front window break because he couldn't get in. I knew he was trying to get in. He couldn't get in. He broke the front window. And at that point, I grabbed the same knife that he was trying to stab me with and my son, and we ran out the back door. And I had to walk like 2 blocks to the 7-Eleven to try and get help. That was a lot.
Who was your first phone call?
The 7-Eleven called 911. I had no idea which way was up. I couldn't believe what just happened. I'm also going through my head like, where are we gonna go? What are we gonna do? Like, 7-Eleven called 911. And those were the first people I spoke with. I was really scared to be on the phone with the police because I was worried that the police would come, they would talk to him, he would be wicked charming, oh, we're just fighting, she's crazy, and now he's mad still because now I called the cops on him. I was scared because I didn't know if I was going to have to go back there and he was going to get detained or not. So many thoughts were going through my head. My son, who just got, woken up in the middle of the night. I know he's seen us fighting. I know he saw some of it because I remember. I remember him being there and him crying, and I was like, just go back to bed. Just go back to bed. So many thoughts were running through my head. I did not know which way was up.
Did you at least have a car?
I had a car with a massive oil leak, so it wasn't going to get me very far in the middle of the night.
Yeah. And your daughter was with her dad?
Yes, this is all still during my custody battle with her because he got her because essentially I was homeless now. And it's really hard to change standing orders. And I couldn't afford an attorney, so I was doing it on my own. So that was going through my head too, like, I'm never going to get her back now. So thankfully she was at her dad's that night.
And that was your place that he moved into, right?
No, I moved in with him.
You moved in with him. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're homeless again, basically.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
How long did this go for, being homeless again?
So thankfully, even though his name was on the lease and the laws of Colorado, he had to vacate. They can't make me leave because now there's a protection order as well. So we can't violate the protection order, and they will not put the victim on the street. So I was able to stay there until I was able to find an apartment on my own. But it was still rough and terrifying.
Yeah, I can't imagine. Did were you working at the time?
I was not. So I started working before I moved in with him. He didn't like that I was working. I would have to be to work across the city pretty early, and he would keep me up all night, fighting me about work, things like that. So I eventually was like, you know what, fine, I will quit and I'll find a job closer to here. So I was in the process of that when this all happened. But I was able to get a job back at the old spot pretty quickly when I needed to.
Okay, that's good. So you were able to get
Mm-hmm.
rehired again once you guys
Yeah.
split up.
Yep.
And how long did that relationship last?
In total, I think only about 9 months.
Okay, so he was showing you who he was pretty early on then with like
Yes.
viewing.
Yep. And that was the hard thing too, because I always assumed DV, the way it's described to you when you're trying to look for red flags, is like he might push you, he might hit you, it's gonna escalate, it's gonna escalate. But it really felt like it went from 0 to 60 overnight.
Now, did you get into other relationships since him?
Just one. And we're still together for 4 years now. So, and he has been a saint. He's dealt with a lot of really the trauma that I've had since that. I wasn't very nice in the beginning for sure.
In what way?
Um, I didn't really trust him. I think we were probably together for about 7 or 8 months when he was like, I would love to meet your kids. And I literally laughed at him. I was like, no, you cannot. Um, I needed tires on my car one time, like the metal was showing through, and I was just venting to him about it, like, oh, I guess I'll just have to get tires on my next check. He was like, I'll buy you tires. And I was like, no, you won't. I don't want your tires. I don't need your tires. I don't need you to hold that over my head. I was very like guarded. Yeah. Yeah. And he was just trying to be, he's he was just like, dude, you need tires, pay me back. I don't care. Like, just put tires on your car. I was like, no, man. But my car got broken into, and they jacked up the ignition with a screwdriver, and I was like, I don't even know how I'm going to get to work now. He sent me, without even asking, because of the tire situation, probably he sent me like $300 for Ubers. I mean, like, it was, it took him a long time to really, he didn't have to prove himself, right? But like, he didn't have to deal with me being an asshole about him just trying to be nice, and he did.
Because you had your own place at the time when you met him.
Yes. Yep.
And you weren't going to move in quickly because of past experiences.
Exactly. I think he had brought it up once when we were about a year in. He was like, together, like combined, we're paying like $3,500 in rent. Like we could just move in together, be closer, split the costs, and just like try to do this. And I was like, hell no. And then finally, I was like, you know what? It does kind of suck driving all the way across town all the time. So let's do it. And he's been very supportive. He's the one who convinced me to start going to therapy, and he's just been really a godsend.
How has therapy been working for you?
I should have done it a lot sooner, for sure. I think I waited about 2 years to do it, but it's been absolutely life-changing. I started EMDR to help with like kind of like PTSD reactions. If my doorbell rang, I would hide like a crazy person. I used to have to keep like a bag by my door at night in case I needed to like run out of my house. I don't do that anymore. I'm not I'm not scared of, random cars in my neighborhood, like I'm being stalked, or it's been it's been life-changing for sure.
Now, were you having those fears that he was stalking you?
Yeah, I felt like a crazy person. I constantly was thinking I was seeing him, even if I probably wasn't. Um, if I'm in the store and there's a man with his build, I would be automatically like scanning for his tattoos, to make sure it's not him, that I don't run into him. Um, or if, I went out with my friends to the bar, like I would swear I would see him there, because he ended up only with 2 years of probation. So he
That
was
was
never,
that was his charge, was 2 years of probation.
yep, yep. He pled, he pled down. So
Did he have a lawyer?
yeah, yeah, I had a really good lawyer.
And you didn't have one.
I was represented by the state.
Oh, you were.
hmm
But he had a good lawyer, so he was able to plead down.
Yeah, we took it to trial twice. The first time it ended in a mistrial because the juror had fallen asleep. The second time I testified for a full day, which was hard. It was really, really hard. The attorneys are not nice, and it's their job, but it was difficult. And this was during COVID. So that night, the night I testified all day, my son ended up in the emergency room with a super high fever, ended up being diagnosed with COVID. So I couldn't go back to court the following day. So they were gonna try to like mistrial and reschedule again. And that's when the DA and his attorney came up with a deal of 2 years probation.
It should have been more.
Absolutely. Because even in between that, he was breaking into my house, he was arrested twice for violating a protection order. The most jail he did was when he got arrested that night of the initial incident. And I think he was in jail for like 3 days. And then he bonded out.
And where you were living somewhere new when he kept breaking in?
Yep. He broke into my house twice. The second time, I had dropped my son off from school and came back, and he was there, holding a knife at me. And I was like, I'm going to call the cops. You can't be here. And he told me that if he was going to go to jail, it was going to be for life and he would kill me. And he was throwing coffee cups, throwing shit around. Thankfully, my neighbor heard it. And she came running to my door. And I stayed in her apartment until the cops came, because it was just, it's justice for the defendant. The cops, and those cops didn't really care. They seemed very annoyed. They were acting like we were just a couple fighting. I had to tell them there was a protection order. They tried telling me since we're in different counties, it doesn't count. And I was like, yes, it does. And they like discreetly took him around back and arrested him. It was right before Christmas. He took all of my kids' Christmas gifts out, my TV, all of that, put it in his truck, said it was his property. It was a mess.
When was the last time you saw or heard from him?
Last time I seen him was court. I haven't heard from him since. I haven't seen him since. And I hope I don't.
Was he a repeat offender? Like, did he have any other previous charges for anything?
Not DV charges, no. He had, drug charges from about 10 years prior.
All right.
But,
I'm glad you're able to talk about it now.
yeah.
It's never easy to go through, and I could see how you'd have PTSD and be untrustworthy to anybody. And I'm glad that your current boyfriend, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad. I wasn't sure if you were engaged or married.
No.
It sounds like you're not ready for any of that anytime soon.
No, I'm just happy where I'm at now.
Yeah. Is he older?
No, he's actually younger than me.
Okay.
Yep.
You really changed it up on this last one.
Yeah, yeah, I went the opposite way.
Well, that's good to hear. I'm glad, Nicole,
Yeah.
because it's never an easy thing to go through that kind of traumatic event.
No.
And
No.
the fallout of it with breaking in and scaring
Mhm.
you, it's a lot to deal with. Did all that happen before court?
Yes.
So
Yep.
you were able to talk about that in court too, right?
I was not able to talk about that in court. They set a lot of rules um, for what I could and could not talk about. They were wanting to subpoena my son. Um, and I told the DA, I was like, I will not bring him. You can put me in jail. I don't care. Like, subpoena him all you want. My son is not coming. He was 7 at the time. He doesn't need to talk about it to court. He doesn't need to be drilled and questioned and feel like he's being told he's lying or wrong. Um, so because of that, I was not allowed to talk about how it affected my son because per the defense, if my son's if we wanted to voice how it's affected my son, he can speak for himself. At, I think it was like 8 or 9 at the time of court. So we couldn't talk about that. Couldn't talk about the mistrial where a juror fell asleep the first time. We couldn't talk about any of his other charges pertaining, to breaking the protection order, getting arrested at my house, breaking in. There was a lot we couldn't talk about. It was very much, I felt like I was on trial versus him.
Yeah, almost like you were not, he's the victim.
Yeah. Yep. I learned throughout this whole thing, the justice system is set up for the defendant. It's justice for the defendant, which may have worked 200 years ago when there was 5 people in a town and someone was being framed. But it's not, it's very much I have to prove I'm not lying versus the defendant.
Well, thank you for coming on here and talking
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah, of course.
Is that your main source of your therapy, is going over that?
Yeah, that's been a big piece of it, trying to be able to move forward. I'm a different person even through the therapy. I used to love like roller coasters and thrill seeking things, and now it's like I say I've like had enough adrenaline to last a lifetime, because now even on the roller coaster, I can't really differentiate like this is fun adrenaline versus how I felt that night. So
I think you need to go back to Massachusetts where you only said wicked one time.
yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming on here and talking about it. I know it's never easy to kind of relive that kind of situation and, that kind of event that happened in your life that, one night it sticks with you for so long, and it affects your relationships, it affects
Mhm.
your decisions, it affects where you go, it affects where you live, your kid. So it's one night, but there's the ripple effect from
Yeah.
that one night where everything's affected because of one night and one thing, just
Yeah.
because you're smoking a bowl with somebody.
Right. 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 Which is, and totally legal in the state of Colorado even. So it's not like I was doing anything really wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you weren't doing anything wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm glad that you're doing better now. I'm glad that you're in therapy, that you get to talk about this. EMDR is an amazing thing in therapy. When did you start doing that?
I think it's been about a year and a half now. And after the first session, I noticed a difference, and I was very skeptical. I was very skeptical to go to therapy. My boyfriend really, and a couple of my friends were like, you should go. You're hiding when the doorbell rings. You need to go. And I was skeptical about EMDR because it was like, just sounds like hypnosis or magic or whatever. Like, that's not going to fix me. And the very first session, I just noticed like I feel different. When I got home from the therapy session, there was like a strange van parked in front of my house. And I was like, oh, that's weird. But I wasn't like freaked out. I was like, oh, weird, a van. And then I literally stopped and was like, do I not care about the van? That's strange. So yeah, it was nice.
Well, I'm glad to see you're making progress because it obviously made some effect on you long term and short term.
Yeah.
So, thank you for coming on here and talking about it because it's not an easy thing to do.
No, no. I have learned, and I've been told by other, women who've gone through assaults or domestic violence, the best advice they ever got was like just to keep talking about it and keep speaking about it because it'll get easier to talk about, it'll get easier to think about. And in doing that, I've realized it's not just me who this has happened to. It unfortunately happens all the time to a lot of people. And to say it's nice feels weird, but it is nice to know, like, I'm not the only one who feels this way. I'm not the only one who has felt paranoid and crazy. And, I'm not the only one who this has affected so deeply. It's been, you got to talk about it.
Have you been able to see your daughter more now?
Yeah. Yep. So we have 50-50 now. So in all of that aftermath, I was still going to court. I was able to finally retain a lawyer, and that didn't even come up. And I was so scared that it would. The night of the DV incident didn't even come up, didn't even matter to, his attorney, my attorney, the judge, and we were able to finally split custody. So
That's good. I'm
yeah,
glad you got both kids now, and
yeah,
you have your own place, and you can
yep,
feel secure, and you haven't seen him or heard from him in years.
right.
So that's awesome. I'm happy for you, Nicole.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, have a great night. Okay.
Thank you, you too.
Bye bye.